Hey everybody, welcome to the Patty G Show. I'm your host, Patty G. We are back for what I think is a very exciting episode. We have another fellow accountant, CPA, financier in the house, Mr. John Roberts of Attract Accounting and Solutions. I'm excited to hear his story, how he got to where he is today, and everything, all finance and accounting worth. So we're going to geek out a little bit. Sorry in advance, but it is what it is. But before we get to that, I want to give a big, wonderful shout out and thank you to the amazing folks that bring you this show each and every week. Building 5, Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelry, Falaya Real Estate, Lake Men's Health Center, Horizon Financial Group, Gage, Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge, and our outfit of the day is always brought to you by McLavy Ltd. Without further ado, Mr. John, how are you, man?
I'm
Welcome
great.
to the show.
Patty G, happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you on, man. A fellow, accountant to accountant. This is exciting.
Yeah, I think folks will be hard pressed to find, more personality between two accountants than the two of us. So I think it's going to be good.
Well, so this is perfect because I was just speaking at the Dunham School for the LCPA, and one of the students asked it was a question that was posed, like, what are the personalities like of accountants and CPAs? Because the basic overall understanding is that we're all like very hush-hush, quiet, reserved. We don't have any personality, like there's nothing to us, just pocket protectors and a 10 key.
Definitely.
And I'm glad we can dispel that myth.
Yeah, agreed. I'd say that the good ones have at least a little personality, right?
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see.
So
let the audience be the judge.
Who are you, man, and what the heck do you do?
Yeah, John Roberts from Baton Rouge. Father, husband, Christian, business owner, real estate investor, all things high energy. And I co-own Attract Accounting Advisors. We're a fractional CFO firm. For those who don't know what that is, it's basically accounting consulting. We service companies that need more than a bookkeeper, but less than a full-time accounting staff. And so it's all things from, the transactional day-to-day, keeping up with books. It's financial analysis, key performance indicator tracking. It's budgeting, forecasting, and also just general operational management as far as a business owner might need an accountant involved.
So fractional CFO services.
That's right.
The tag.
That's right. Yep.
I've never heard. There's not many firms that do that here in town, is there?
No, I can think of a few. It really plays into my partner Armin Michaud and I. It plays into our past experience, and it's one of those things where we're really niching down into that, kind of taking a Keynes approach of one love, and only focusing on the clients who need that. And so not at all a one-size-fits-all arrangement, but one that we found is pretty important. A lot of our construction companies, need bonding. They need to know whether they need to ramp up on hiring or do they need to go after a line of credit. If they do need a line of credit, they're going to need financials, and they might have monthly or quarterly reporting obligations that we handle. It could be insurance renewals, working with the insurance agent to determine, obviously you always want to be covered, but there's some sort of risk that you need to innately have or accept in order to not go bankrupt from insurance. And then it's just general day to day. A lot of our clients have a lot of turnover in their accounting department, and we go in, implement best practices, whether it's reconciling a revenue system to QuickBooks or to some other accounting software, and really teaching the button pushers essentially, what are the ramifications of booking a bill versus an expense, right? And really taking the Greek that is accounting and translating it into plain English.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is greatly needed
Yeah.
in every industry, because it's true. You've got this shortage of folks with the wherewithal to know the difference between the bill and the expense and how that translates to all the financials, not just the P&L. There's also that balance sheet that a lot of people often overlook.
Yeah, and most importantly, your statement of cash flows, which ties it all together. And, I can't tell you how many clients are like, John, our P&L looks great, but like, where is my cash going? And, not to get too deep into accounting weeds, but, there are items that you spend cash on that don't show up on your P&L, like debt service or fixed asset, purchases. And once we get a client to understand that, I think it gives them a little more relief to know that, money isn't going out the back door. But at the same time, you got to be careful as to how much your inventory will grow, because it'll hemorrhage your cash. And, if there's a new opportunity to, spend more on CapEx or to buy a new company and all of your money is stuck in inventory, then that could be an issue.
Especially at the end of the year when you have to worry about that inventory tax.
Yeah, and then also, going to buy equipment at year end. If you want to maximize your depreciation, but you've got no cash, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, big problem. And it builds on that CPA business owner relationship that I recognized when before I went to LSU, before I got my degrees. I was like, there's this relationship that has to exist. You can't run a business successfully without either having a firm understanding of your financials or a great relationship with those that do.
No, 100%. And it's not only, everybody can look at a P&L or a balance sheet, but like, what does it actually mean? And why are these assets pent up on your balance sheet? Or, why aren't your liabilities being paid down at a faster rate? And do you have any idea how much of your monthly payment is going to interest? And, people are like, man, I'm never getting ahead. Yeah, because you paid $50,000 in interest last year and you thought you paid $5,000, And so, just getting in and teaching folks the importance of looping in the accountants. I think so often accountants are kind of looked at really in two ways. The first is, kind of a necessary evil. And then the second is maybe an accountant is someone who is really good at bean counting and pushing paper, but really has no real life application to help a business grow or scale. And, what we were talking about earlier in terms of personality, I think folks assume that because an accountant is maybe shy, a typical accountant is shy and maybe more reserved, that they don't know what they're talking about, or they lack confidence to make that suggestion that, hey, you need to sell everything. Like I told a client that the other day, like you've got this nice, building company, whatever assets, sell them all. Because the debt's coming due, and now is a better time to sell than if we do enter in a recession, and the value that you think you have is going to plummet. So I think that's where we've been really able to make a difference in some of our clients, and we've really grown honestly faster than I expected, which is a good problem to have until you reach max capacity.
Well, that's what I was about to get into is the Patty G Show is now proudly presented by Baton Rouge Regional Airport. Y'all, I fly exclusively Baton Rouge whenever I best can. And what they've got now since June of 23 is a nonstop flight from capital to capital, Baton Rouge Airport to Washington, D.C. You're able to make the round trip in one day. They've got the earliest flight, or even earlier than flying in New Orleans. You can fly to Baton Rouge to go from Baton Rouge to D.C., round trip one day. If you've got meetings in D.C. or you've got business gatherings, you definitely want to fly to Baton Rouge and go from capital to capital. They are a proud presenter. We are now brought to you by Baton Rouge Regional Airport. Thank you so very much for bringing them on as the latest sponsor of the Patty. At what point do you know you've reached max capacity, and how do you manage the workforce or lack thereof?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So when we first started, I really went after folks who had a great work ethic, but maybe not a ton of technical knowledge. And I felt that between me being able to train them and obviously keep an eye on them, and then also YouTube, that, these folks could, get to the level of being as productive as possible, as quickly as possible. And as of late, we've really been blessed that at this point, our reputation is one of, I think we like to say we're not your father's accounting firm, where, we kind of pitch it as an opportunity to come in and make a difference right away and to get that instant gratification of, making a client happy and solving problems. And so with just outlets like this and being able to tell more folks about our company, and then also the personal relationships that we've built over the years, we've actually been able to attract some really good talent. And so in the last three weeks, so 2 folks have started. One lady with like 20 years experience, at different controller positions around town, joined up. And then one lady from, she had 3 years of tax experience at a real big firm around here. And she was kind of a cog in a wheel. I mean, I've been there for sure. And, we just made a really competitive offer and told her that, you're in our plans to scale. And so I think that it just required us to be a lot more creative with our offers. And because we're so lean that we could pay as much as the bigger companies can and maybe offer more perks, that's going to be a key strategic point going forward in terms of like how big do we want to be? Because I never want to get so big that we're going against the Eisner Ampers of the world, right? But I do want to be big enough to have additional resources for our clients, right? Like one thing that's really important, or that we're seeing across the industry, is the integration with financial advisors, right? Having a CFP on staff, and we're in talks with that, and our clients would love it. And I mentioned earlier, I think offline, but we bought a new building and we've got room to grow in there too. So I guess I look at it as an opportunity to really be as big as we want to be, but never really sacrifice that quality. And then you asked another good question as to how do you measure capacity? It's my workload. If I'm working, till midnight, 3 nights a week, and then all day Saturday and Sunday, like that's an issue. Right. And if we're being honest, that is a current issue. And that's why I was so relieved when these new, employees started. And, it's interesting though, the same thing that got me into this point, that got me here is the same thing that gets me into more trouble, right? That is like, wanting to help people so much that, I'm willing to give up my entire weekend, or willing to give up, putting my kids to bed. And then, cause you're like, oh, just this once, and then the next thing you've missed half the bedtimes during the month, And so, it's been a struggle, and it's been something like, it's been a situation where at first I had to prove to myself that it was a viable concept and that like we could sell the work, and I had to prove to the team, because, if we're not selling any work, the team's like, well, dang, how am I going to get paid? And I feel like we're about to that point where folks are like, okay, like this is a legit company. It's ran by, a bunch of young dudes who probably are more casual than anybody else that they've ever met. But at the same time, we live by our core values, be cool, extreme ownership, integrity, drive, and family. And they understand that, I'm not going to say we're established, but we're not a startup anymore.
Right. Well, I think that often gets lost when you look at the realm of relaxed and calm and cool and collective within your financial world. If you're sitting down with somebody and they're so relaxed and so just easygoing, there has been this persona of like qualitative work they can produce. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, they're so relaxed, they're so laid back. How do they know what they're talking about? And so you got to find that balance to where you can still assert that you're informed, you know what you're talking about, and it's accurate, and still keep that laid back attitude where you're not always, uptight and proper and everything, but you can actually connect with the clients better. And it's going to differ on what clients sit in the room. It has to.
100%.
You have to be a chameleon in that sense where you can adapt to who you're sitting across from, because the conversations you have with a fourth generation farming organization versus somebody going in IT, two different conversations.
Yeah. And I've learned that lesson the hard way. I've been I'm not going to say apathetic, but like I've been Mr. Cool in certain meetings, and, meetings with folks who have owned a company for 30, 40 years. And it didn't go over so well, and looking back on it, I should have known better. I never made that mistake again, though. But to your point,
this episode is proudly presented by Gage. Gage is a local company here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. For over 40 years, Gage has provided businesses with the very best telecommunications, IT, and standby power services available. Gage has a variety of services, including Gage Cloud Voice. It is the last phone system your business will ever need. You need to give your business the ability to be accessible anytime, anywhere, and with Gage's cloud-based phone system, you'll be able to accomplish just that. Not only do they have Gage Cloud Voice, they have fully managed IT services that are proactive network monitoring, 24/7, 365, help desk, business continuity. They are there for you. What you're also going to need is some cybersecurity. Gage is there to safeguard your business from potential cyber threats, even when you aren't aware they exist. Gage also is power and leaders in standby generators. They are the #1 Cummins dealer on the Gulf Coast and provide generators to homes and businesses of any size so you can keep life going. Gage, better connected, a proud sponsor of the Patty G Show.
But to your point, a lot of people look at, being more relaxed as being apathetic, and that's really not us. We're very to the point. I think, people ask us what we think, and I never say it depends. Do you know what I mean? Like if somebody asks me a very complicated question and like I just say it depends and then stay silent, like I added no value, right? And so like what I like to do is I'll say it depends, but comma. Like it depends, but like here are the different ways that we can approach this and offer more value, because it's famous for attorney speak, right? Like, what happens if this happens? Well, it depends. Well, you're not adding any value by saying it depends. And we always like to say, Armin and I, like, we're willing to stick our neck out a little bit for our clients. Like if I give some advice and I'm wrong, well, if I feel like I'm wrong, I'm going to go back and like validate. And or I might tell the client, like, look, I'm not 100% sure about this. I think this is the way we need to do it. So let's proceed this way, but I'm reserving the right to go a different direction if we need to. And I think so often, if we have an important meeting and a client comes to me and says, hey, what do you think about this? It depends, or I'll have to get back with you. They're like, man, I just drove over here for nothing,
So I'll take your "it depends" comment because I use it frequently, but instead of saying "it depends," but if we go X, Y, and Z, so they'll ask me a question. Oh, what are we thinking about? Going from one location to two, or what do I think if I'm going to do this tax strategy? It's like, well, it depends. And my follow up with them is always more information gathering, right?
Yeah.
Which we have to do.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it depends. Well, what are you thinking about this? What's this angle? And so I'm finding my answers to then say, okay, now that your beginning question was, how do I ride a bike? And then I asked you all these other things. And now I know I need to recommend this bike for you to ride on your course through the countryside that you're going with your family of 6. It's like, you start with what the client thinks is they just need a quick, immediate answer.
Yeah.
But because of how there are a lot of technicalities and everything within our field, you have to ask a lot more questions to get more information to then bring that like, okay, here's what we need to do. Here's that thought, planned out response. But yeah, those folks that are just like, well, it depends. Let me do some research and get back to you. It's like, okay, you're not, like, to your point. It's like they drove this way. They blocked out time of their day. You got to give them something, you know? So I'm always like, it depends on these other additional factors I need to ask you about.
100%. And, speaking of growth earlier, I've had this realization like in the last couple of weeks that I only want to grow as fast as my staff can support it.
Yeah.
Don't grow and then expect to backfill the staff. We like to say, we only like to hire guns, I expect a lot out of everybody on our team. And I'm okay with the fact that I can find 6 guns and stay boutique, as opposed to going on a hiring spree and hiring 25 people and not really know what the quality will be. But my top line looks great. I don't want to grow just to grow.
I think that not just accounting specific, but for every entrepreneur, controlled level of growth.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some amazing people sit in the spot that you're at, and they've gone down that path of we want controlled growth that we can manage to make sure our product is not diminished over the volume that we produce. And with accounting, you can easily find yourself upside down while, again, top line's looking great. You're sacrificing bedtimes missed. You're sacrificing your weekends. You're sacrificing any and every ounce of free time you thought you had. You're sacrificing really unplugging at the end of the day. How oftentimes is your phone, you turn it on loud when you get home because you want to see if somebody's reaching out to you and contacting you with a problem that you have to solve. And when you try to do that rapid growth, that rapid expansion, the top level folks often end up absorbing that blow more so than your medium and lower level staff, where it matters that you have the support to handle all that high end. And if you can't, you just end up busting your butt and working 12 days, 12 hours a day over the weekends. And it's tough to grow. And it's also tough to tell a client no.
Yeah. And, to the point of having a lot of guns, I want to empower our team. That is, I want the folks that our clients speak to be empowered to give that advice and to be trained up on the front end to give that advice. Because, even when I was at, a big firm in the past, even to this day, I'm working with firms, and occasionally, I don't do the audit, right? I'll do the books, but I can't do the audit because I'm not independent. And I'm like, okay, I've got a question about the audit. And these are high up people, folks who have been with the firm for, 15 plus years. I got to ask the partner. This isn't that complicated. Can you tell me what you think about this? Is this is this support sufficient or not? And it just doesn't seem very efficient. And I want to empower the team. I can't stress that enough.
When the larger firms build up systems and bureaucracies and levels of command, that your boutique firms offer a lot more independence and a lot more independent thinking and answering, where you've got these larger firms through a recent acquisition of a firm that they have to send all their reports through New York.
Yeah.
And so you've got staff at a local level that are aggravated, and they just finish the work. They expect to be able to send it to the client because it's done, signed off, but it has to be signed off by somebody in New York who's signing off on 1,000 other audits. And so then they get frustrated because their work product has been done for 2 weeks, isn't communicated to the client because it has to go through these procedures just because it's how things are run. But then you have the local clients here who've been working with this person for years and used to getting responses and answers quickly. And now it's, well, that's got to go through corporate. Well, that's got to go through corporate. Well, that's got to go through corporate. And keeping a certain size can be strategic and lucrative in the long run because you build up that demand. Yeah.
And it's the perfect balance between, quality and convenience, right? These big firms are going to say, well, it's part of our quality manual, we have to uphold this level of quality. And I get that. But, a snowball stand client of ours doesn't need 3 levels of approval to see whether they need to buy another snowball stand or not, and so
an extra bag of ice.
Yeah. So, just finding on the front end, what clients are a good fit. Maybe some clients will accept a longer lead time in order to get, a really nice sign off from a, Ivy League graduate, but maybe not.
And look, at the end of the day, when you're bringing your financials to a banker, to a financier, they don't particularly care what their college degree was,
right,
or where they got it from. If they have the 3 valued letters behind their name, they're like, okay, cool. And that's it. And at the end of the day, if you're somebody looking to purchase another building and expand, you want to meet their parameters in the best way you can. To what end do you strive to get somebody that's from an Ivy League school to sign off on the document?
Yeah.
We all had to take the same test.
Right.
We all had to pass the same test. You don't know if they got a 76 or 100. You don't know if I got a 76 or 100 on the exam. You know, it's like at that point, do you want the work done and you want to keep your business moving forward and you want to be efficient with your process? Or do you want to be able to say, oh, I've got some Ivy League folks behind me?
Yeah.
Imagine taxiing on a plane looking toward the end of the runway. It seems so far away, it's even hard to see it. And that's what the concept of retirement probably felt like when you were in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, way far in the distance, not visible or even a concern. But as you turn 50, something happens. Retirement suddenly seems like something real, something not too far away. In your 50s, you are rolling down the runway. Retirement is getting closer and closer, faster and faster, weeks and months zipping by. But are you even ready for a successful takeoff to retirement? Fear not, there's still runway left. But the time is now. Time to make progress and time to get a plan. The Runway Decade will help you get organized, get energized, and give you the direction you need to take off to your desired retirement. The Runway Decade, building a pre-retirement flight plan in your 50s.
Yeah, man, it's interesting because we have clients who they just want an answer. They want an answer now, and we have to do our best to give them what they want. And a lot of times it's a time sensitive answer. And what I like most about where we're at in the boutique realm is I'm becoming really good friends with a lot of these business owners, and our relationship is starting to transcend a transactional one, in that we're now starting to invest together. Or there might be a deal that I come across that I can't afford, but I know that they can, and I know that they need the write-off, and it's a win-win. Because my goal is to teach them how to save on taxes, let's say, for example. And, at the same time, I get the satisfaction of helping them, and then they're going to go tell their friends about me, And so it's cool that when you stay in the boutique realm, that you really develop, relationships that are more than transactional.
And it's all on what type of firm you want to build. Mm-hmm. It is, are you after a tax practice that is high volume? Or are you after a client accounting services practice that is qualitative volume, where it's not, you're not trying to get 1,000 clients. You're trying to get 20 to 25 really good ones, because at the end of the day, 20 to 25 is kind of an individual's cap.
Yeah.
It's just to work and service them to the fullest possible extent. I find 20 to 25 clients is where people tap out. Mm-hmm. Where do you see that number in what an individual accountant or CPA can service to the fullest extent possible?
Yeah, I agree. I've done a lot of research around the topic, and I've looked to, different influencers in the accounting industry, and I'm a part of a few masterminds, and, I've been to a few conferences, and 30, like you said, 25 to 30 is the max. And, it's my job as the owner to be able to sell a high level of service to the client from a margin perspective, so that I don't need to have 40 or 50 clients, right? And if we have a client who doesn't want to pay the fees in order to be one of the 25, well, then it's just not a fit. And I made that mistake on the front end. I talk like I've had this firm forever. It's only 18 months old.
Yeah, we'll back up once you finish this thought.
Yeah, and but I look back at clients who I've kind of disengaged over the last few months, and I wouldn't have even really had more than one conversation with them now. But back then, I was just trying to put food on the table, and trying to validate the proof of concept. And it's crazy the maturity that we've had in the last 18 months.
So to back up, let's get to that. What's the origin story of Attract?
Yeah. So
where'd you come from?
So I worked 4 years in audit at Postlethwaite Netterville. Awesome clients. A lot of what I learned in those 4 years I implement now, mainly from a cultural perspective. So Canes was one of my biggest clients. So we'd go to Frisco, every, I guess, quarter or twice a year. And I've ripped out some of their, culture knacks and implemented them in our firm. And then I also learned a lot about banks and credit unions. And I worked with Marucci and Turner and Excel and a lot of blue chip companies around town. And basically felt like, okay, and I was on the partner track there, and then they told me that, but it's a good thing I didn't stay, I guess.
So I was about to ask, what's their timeline? So for folks that aren't aware of how public accounting firms generally work, you start as an intern, you work your way to there are different titles for this, but this is the general flow chart: intern, staff, senior manager, some folks have, junior partner, and then partner. So what was their timetable from intern to partner?
Yeah, so for me, they told me by the time I was 32, which I just turned 32 last week.
So when did you start with them?
Yeah, I started in 2014, so it would have been a 7-year track, essentially.
2014 was 9 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Wow, so time flies.
So a decade.
Yeah,
is generally
that's right.
Is generally the time frame that CPA firms see from start to partner. If you start at the very bottom, and it's generally a decade of hard work, dedication to get to that partner track.
Yeah. And then once you're a partner, you're kind of beholden to your other partners from a reputation standpoint, from a business mix standpoint, because the staff that would be working on my engagement when I'm a partner, let's say, they just got pissed off because last week they worked on another job that's going to crush their performance bonus because it's not utilizing well, right? Or it's not realizing well. And that was always kind of scary for me too. Like I couldn't control the culture because the staff worked from partner to partner throughout the course of the year. And I wanted them to work intensely from, say, February to April on my jobs, but then they roll into governmental and their deadlines are completely different. They've got September 30th deadlines or December 31st deadlines. And so you end up working these people to death because they have so many bosses, right? And so anyway, spent 4 years at Postlethwaite. It was a great experience, great people. But I felt like in order to really round out my resume, I wanted some corporate finance experience.
Thank you so very much to Building 5 for becoming the latest sponsor of the Patty G Show. We are going to be filming once a month at Building 5. We're going to post about it on our social so you can come and visit with us. Building 5 is an excellent food establishment if you're into sharing boards and really getting a creative menu. Misty and Brumby have done an excellent job of creating an environment that's warm, welcoming, and inviting for every single occasion. Go on over to Building 5 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and tell them that the Patty G Show experience.
And so Epic Piping was hiring. And what's interesting about that story is I got my resume in the stack because I worked with a girl from Postlethwaite who was there, and she was the accounting manager. And I originally applied for the FP&A position, financial planning and analysis. And it was down to me and a lady from Community Coffee who we ended up working together. I didn't get the FP&A job. But what happened was that accounting manager who connected me with Epic left the company. And they asked me in the interview, like, John, do you want this role? And I thought back to, just over the years, getting feedback from interviews. And, everyone told me it doesn't matter what position, what seat on the bus that you're on. It just matters what bus you're on. And I knew that Epic was scaling big time. And I knew that there was the Bernhard Capital background and, that it was basically the Shaw 2.0. And so I said, yeah, I'll take it. And I hadn't even done a bank rec in years, a bank reconciliation, which is something like interns do, because it just wasn't my expertise. I was in audit. I was doing tests and, internal controls and things of that nature. And so it was a really awesome experience at Epic. And I met my now partner, Armin Michaud. He was my boss at Epic. And we were a really lean organization, really well organized. And it was in that environment that I realized there are companies out there who really value accountants. And the accountants led many meetings. And I think it was a testament to how strong that accounting team was. And, our CFO had previously been a president of a division in Shaw. And he's by far, one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And he could present well, and he was always on point. And so I really emulated him, and Armin did too. And he was just so well respected. And so I would say in late 2021, or really even going back to COVID, right? COVID hit. I started to reevaluate where I was at in my life, and what my potential was, and was I realizing was I doing everything I can to be the best that I could be, and I started having my first child was born in 2019, and my second was born in 2021. And so by the time my second child was born, my wife was still working full time, and it was a grind. I mean, we worked long hours, nothing near like we work now, but we worked long hours, and rates were still low at the time. And so, and I had a lot of equity in my house because I had been on the Dave Ramsey plan leading up, 15-year mortgage. And so, I refinanced the house to a lower rate and to a 30-year AM, and to spread my payments out and get my note down. And I said, I'm going to try to step out. And so I met this guy named David Dean, who was good friends with this guy, Ricky Ferreira, who's a financial advisor in town. And David had been in business with his father, and his father had retired. And David was just kind of one of these, CPAs with a bookkeeper, and had a great practice, but, wasn't really looking to scale.
Right.
And so I basically went to work for him, and with the intention of taking over his firm. And in the meantime, I was building up a tract, which started off as just friends and family. And it was just fractional controller work. It probably started off as bookkeeping. Hey, John, I have no idea if I'm making money. I don't know how to do sales tax. I don't know how to run payroll or anything like that. And my QuickBooks is jacked up. Do you know how to fix it? And I told him, yeah. And in reality, I had no idea how to fix it. And so, it just kind of grew from there. And so in April of 22, my partner Armin Michaud left Epic. So I had left Epic like 4 months prior, and he left, and then that's like when we really took off. We started getting some bigger engagements with Bernhard Capital companies, and word got around that we had great pedigree, and that so often we hear from our clients, to your point from earlier, maybe they don't communicate the best. The CPAs don't communicate well, or they're stuck in the 90s, or they don't have systems that scale. And so we decided to flip it on its head. From the very beginning, we said that we were going to implement, this practice management software, workflows similar to Monday.com. We're going to implement Bill.com. We're going to work on only accounting software that we're comfortable with, which is largely QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online, largely online, and really, reverse engineer this thing to where we could give clients our best at this one particular niche. And so in the meantime, David Dean was still doing taxes, and so I learned how to do taxes. And I knew enough to at least do a tax return. I hadn't done any tax work since like 2015, 2016. I didn't even do my own taxes up to that point. But I really poured in and leaned in, and David trained me, really well. And there's a lot of stuff that I still don't know about tax work. But YouTube is a great resource. As I mentioned, I joined these masterminds, and that's really been cool. So, today we're a team of 12. We have some assistants in Nepal as well that helps out with kind of the lower level stuff, expense classification, bank reconciliations. They're even starting to do some accrual journal entries, which for those of you who don't know, that means you're basically recognizing expenses when you incur them and not when you pay them, and revenue when you earn it and not necessarily when you're paid. And so it's been a great progression so far. But as of late, I'd say probably the last 2 months with the tax deadline and whatnot, I've felt like I'm spinning plates a bit. Oh, let's keep this one going. Oh no, this one's about to fall. Let's go help out that one. And so it's a point where we need to make a strategic decision as to where do we go from here.
Yeah. So you mentioned in there a lot,
yeah.
Which you've come a long way in a short period of time, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And having that P&N audit experience is huge. Audit is one of those areas that you get to learn a lot about the why behind the organization, and it helps you kind of plan and project from there. But what you mentioned was having some remote workers outside of the country. So let's go down that area, and how does that work? How do you make that feasible while maintaining, in the ever digital age, security?
Yeah, excellent question. So it started off as just trying to find freelancers, and it was a situation where the freelancers would never have access to anything other than a bank statement and your client's QuickBooks account. And, never access to any personal identification, any PII information is the other I was looking for. And so essentially, that worked out okay. It turns out the freelancers didn't only work for me. And I knew that they didn't.
Freelancers, they only work for me, right?
Yeah. And so, but just being able to, reconcile a year's worth of screwed up books, it was a way to keep security high and to keep costs down, and also a way for us to stay efficient. And so that kind of morphed into where we're at now. We don't implement any freelancers anymore, but we do implement this service in Nepal. It's an American company. And it's a friend of mine who's also a mentor named Assis Asharia. He built up his own, staff, essentially a staffing company. And from a security perspective, our IT guy has access to his computer, to our subcontractor. And our subcontractor has the same amount of security that we do here. He's signed off on allowing us to monitor it and all these types of things. And everything we do is cloud-based, multi-encryption, all of that. There's multi-factor on everything. And our IT guy is very familiar with what it takes to stay secure there. And he doesn't do any tax work either, our subcontractor in Nepal. And so, there is language in our engagement letter that allows us to do that. And it's quite common. I mean, all the big firms are doing it, and they all have that same language.
Right.
And, we're upfront with our clients, and we let them know, like, hey, we're scaling to be a virtual firm. We do have help overseas. And, here's the steps that we're taking to maintain your privacy and make sure that you're protected. And so it's been great for us because, these guys, this one guy in particular, the subcontractor, we pay him, I think, maybe $2,000 a month, and he performs like someone who we would pay $5,000 or $6,000 a month.
Yeah.
And what's great about him too is he's really a manager, and he is ready for more junior staff to build up underneath him. And so, I think that's the future of our firm. Like, I think, and, this will be news to my partner Armand, but I was talking to some friends or to some other members of the team, but I could really see only managers and above being American going forward. Like that staff level accountant. These guys in Nepal have master's degrees in accounting. I don't know how it translates, but I do know that they work very hard. They understand privacy and security, and they're vetted by the staffing company, right? And in a digital age, they'll link up with us. Typically 8 a.m. our time is like 5 or 6 p.m. their time. And, we have team huddles every day, and those guys are on it. So I think it's kind of a secret sauce for us at our level, because all the big firms are doing it, all of them. And, but no one at the boutique level has that and that's just a grace of God, like that I met someone who could help me, in that realm with staffing.
Yeah. I mean, because that is an absolute challenge in our industry is staffing, because they all, one way or another, decide to go work for a big four, and they work for a big four. Generally, your 4-year lifespan's about where they most tap out, because they recognize they've got a lot of great things going for them, but when you're in tax or you're in audit or you're in another particular field, it's all you do. Like you said, you hadn't touched tax returns since 2015, and you've got these hours that they just have to get the work done.
Right.
The work's got to get done, but it's very attractive to go work there because of X, Y, and Z. And so when you realize that you're after something different, then when you get people leaving the boat and they're like 4 or 5 years into their career. And so it's hard to find those entry-level folks to do that entry-level work that's ever so needed, because everybody's getting off to a bigger firm when you're a smaller firm and you only have so many resources to go around.
Welcome to the brand new Falaya mobile app. We took all the same tech that's helped hundreds of people sell their homes themselves and packed it into an easy-to-use app for your phone. When you download the Falaya mobile app on either the Apple or Android App Store, you'll immediately be able to see the power of this game-changing tool. From the seller's dashboard, you can navigate to all the information that you need. We intentionally separated everything into key groups, such as tasks to be completed, buyer leads for your listing, and contact information for everyone involved through closing. When you get an offer on your property, you can simply review and respond all within the app. No matter where you are in the world, you'll be able to monitor everything that's going on with your property from listed to sold. It's truly the power of Falaya in the palm of your hand. Download the app and see for yourself. Falaya, it's real estate reimagined.
Yeah, you're right. It's so competitive, and we're very mindful of recruiting. And I'm going to speak at Beta Alpha Psi, I think, next week at LSU. And I think our pitch is, like I said earlier, not your dad's CPA firm. I think that for us, we'll come off as an opportunity for folks to make just as much money as Big Four, but be able to scale your knowledge that much quicker. And also, we have young kids too, right? And so we understand the importance of balance. And, I'm not going to say like I have the best work-life balance, but I'll be damned, like my staff will have a better work-life balance than I do, because I took the risk, and the buck stops with me. And so I want them to have the best experience. And I think me being so near to that, I guess, point in life where you're newly married or you're having kids, and I can relate to that. And when I was at these big firms or even bigger companies, the relatability, it just isn't there. And I think for us, that's kind of another one of our defining factors.
Yeah, you lose a little bit when you take 10 to 15 years to get to a senior partner level where you're making those decisions from the staff that are there in their early 20s.
That's right.
You know, they're worried about nowadays maybe settling down. They want to travel, which means they need remote opportunities. They want to start a family, which means they're going to need some flexibility in the timing. Or they've got young kids, which means they need even more flexibility in timing. So you run into the situation where you're almost unrelatable to a degree of, well, what do you mean you can't just come into work at 5 or 6 in the morning and get this stuff done? Like, what do you have to do?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I've got a kid I got to drop off at either daycare or preschool. You know, and it's like, oh, well, my kids are driving, they're self-sufficient. You know, I don't have those same burdens, and it's hard to establish this, here are my needs. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. You know?
And it starts on the front end, too. I mean, you know, I always try to tell the staff, it's like, I'm going to load you up. You know, like, you need to tell me when. But when you say when, I'm not going to push you any harder because, like, I understand that, you know, like, for instance, a staff member calls in sick. I got it. You know, I can pick up the slack. Now, on the flip side, John can't ever call in sick. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
So that's the trade-off. Like, I'm not going to expect them to work as hard as me because I get more reward, to be quite honest. Now, if they want the same amount of reward and they can match the work ethic and the drive, then we're going to make it equitable. And I think that comes down to leadership, you know, like being able to you know, treat everyone fair but not the same. I think that's the problem with big organizations too, is they treat everyone the same. They think fair is the same, and it's not. Like, that's what happens with these high performers at these big firms. They get treated the same as everyone else, and in reality, they're going above and beyond. And their bonus is capped, but it shouldn't be capped because they're, you know, providing a higher level of service to their clients. And so for me, in terms of growth, I don't want to ever be so big that part of our culture gets lost. Yeah. You know, like where I'm only tracking scorecards. Like, I want to see, you know, I want to talk to the clients and see how they feel about the staff. And that's how we can really maintain that true quality.
Well, and the trouble with capping is, you ever seen The Office?
Yes.
You saw when Jim's bonus got capped?
Yes.
That relates to real life.
Definitely.
And if you tell somebody a goal or a threshold that they've got to reach, and then you later on tell them it's capped at that level, they're going to immediately become disengaged until the next time they start over again.
Yep.
Because if they know, and you'll find out how efficient they can become, because if you tell them, here's your salary cap, here's the billable hours you got to have, and they start hitting that in 9 months, 8 months, instead of a full calendar 12, they're going to be so disengaged for, you know, a third or a quarter of the year.
Yeah. And what does that do to the other folks, you know, like who maybe aren't capped, but the perception is that it's okay to just sit back and kick your feet up, exactly. You know, when you've reached a level that you're comfortable with. And, you know, again, that's leadership, you know, and I am really happy. Like, I'm so blessed to have learned from some excellent leaders, you know. A lot of my college football coaches, I played football at Southeastern, and all of my college football coaches from when I was at Southeastern are doing huge things right now. Like Ron Roberts was our head coach, and he's now the defensive coordinator at Auburn. Pete Golding was the defensive coordinator at Southeastern, and just recently he was the DC at Alabama, and now he's at Ole Miss. Patrick Toney, who was our GA, he's now the defensive backs coach at Arizona Cardinals. My position coach, Carl Scott, was at University of Alabama. Now he's at Seattle Seahawks. And so I learned from these guys who were just excellent leaders. And I had opportunities that not many people in our industry have. And, you know, they used to say, like, it's amazing what happens or how successful you can be when no one cares who gets the credit. And that's how we run our organization as well. You know, I don't care. I don't have to tell everybody on my team how good I did with a certain client. But you know, if you let your ego get the best of you, it's gonna come to that, and the team suffers and the client suffers.
And when in our position, you have to be while it doesn't matter who gets the credit and the credit goes rightfully so where it needs to be, as an owner, to your point, the buck always stops with you. Mm-hmm. So if something bad happens or my team had a mess up, I'm always on the phone with the client. Hey, here's what happened. And it's not like, oh, John messed up. It's like, no. We messed up. Here's how we're going to fix it. X, Y, and Z. You got to take it out. Talk to me. Mm-hmm. Like you as a leader can't be like, oh, well, no, that was all John. John did all that. Like, you got to talk to him. He messed up your books or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's no. We recognize that there's an issue. We're going to resolve it. And tell me what you need to tell me.
Yeah.
It's like hit me with it. Don't hit the staff with it. We manage internally how we resolve problems. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't, as the client, need to go and yell at my staff.
Yeah, and that's
yell at me.
Yeah, that's extreme ownership too. I mean, that's one of our core values. Everything that happens in this firm is my fault. And as our staff come along, they're starting to develop that mentality as well. And it's easy to say like, is it really your fault, John? Well, clearly, because I didn't train them well enough. And if they weren't trained, how could I have, figured that out on the front end? Well, did I really do everything I could to double check their work? Or was I too busy selling other work?
Yeah.
And looking back, maybe that was an issue. Maybe John was too worried about business development and, maybe didn't spend enough time on staff evaluation. And or on the front end in the interviewing process, John should have had a process to catch this poor skill or this poor habit that this employee had. And I'm finding that if we continue to have a culture of high achievers, the people who we want in the boat are gonna up their performance. Like they're gonna get what, like Saban said it best, like mediocre people or high achievers don't like hanging out with mediocre people. And my goal is to not have any mediocre people. If I only have 10, dogs, like we're going with 10. I'd rather fight with 10 dogs than, 30 people who, aren't going to be there when I need them.
Right.
So I really take a lot of sports analogies and a lot of sports lessons and apply it to accounting, which is funny because maybe you'd see that in a construction company, but not an accounting company.
Yeah, you don't hear about a lot of football players going and starting their own accounting firm.
Yeah.
It's not the common theme for accountants,
Yeah, man, there's so much to learn about life in sports, though, and even, whether you like Saban or not, like the dude is a living legend, and I just find myself like looking at footage of him and how he manages his team and his mantras, and it takes what it takes, and like he jumped on a reporter. I don't even know if it was recent or not, but he jumped on a reporter saying like, how important is it that you get, your young guys to play this week? And he says, why do you think they're going to play? Do you think that this team that we're playing against is so poor that, we're going to have our cleanup crew in on the second quarter, which means like your second and third string. And he said, see, that's the problem with the media and even members of our team. Like they underestimate the opponent. And I never underestimate my opponent. And honestly, like my opponents, I'll never talk bad about another firm or anything like that because there's so much work to go around. I mean,
so much.
I am just, I'll be honest, at first I had a mindset of lack, like not one of abundance. And I'm like, man, I got to go after, so-and-so who specializes in construction. Like I want all their clients. And in reality, there's so much work to go around. Like now I see why these firms merge, Ernst and Young. You know what I mean? Like there was Ernst and there was Young, they merged together because there's just so much opportunity out there. And, I guess getting back to Saban though, like I'm not going to underestimate, my opponent or even my client. Like there's so often times when I'm like, man, I could really just not go down this rabbit hole with this client and they'll never really, know one way or the other if I cut a corner, let's say. And not to say anything fraudulent by any means. It's just like, do I need to go in and explain it when I know that it's not really going to stick? But I'll do it anyway because I feel like the more that we repeat it, the more they'll say, oh, well, maybe I can go. They think about it a different way. because they have things in their head that I would never think of.
100%.
Look,
I started doing family financials for my wife and I, and she never cared about a balance sheet. And now it's a big point of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You repeat it and you work through it. And at the end of the day, they recognize the value you're trying to offer is worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. And I think, a concierge approach, like Bree Boudreaux was talking about, I think that's where we want to be. I only want to work with tax clients who will buy a tax plan. I don't want to just do your tax work, because at the end of the day, you're going to get mad at me when you have to pay a big tax bill. And I'm going to say, well, we should have planned better. But in order for us to plan better, you would have had to, step out of your comfort zone in terms of, investing in this or that and maximizing depreciation. And you would have had to pay for it, because it took me a long time to figure out these strategies. And more importantly, it took a lot of effort to personalize it to you. And so, we're not for everyone. I went to a 368 Some Assembly Required last week, and this guy, Bill DePaula, got up, and he's the CEO of a Swamp Dog, which is looks to me like a franchisee restaurant investment company, and they got a bunch of different brands. And he said, the best way to build a brand is to build a repellent one that doesn't attract everyone, one that repels people. And that is to say, like, to build a brand that is not for everyone, because essentially you want the loyalists to stand with you. Like, you don't want the populists. You want the raving fans, the loyalists. And if that means that, a client doesn't want to pay our rates, then that's just how it goes. You're just not a fit,
And that is a strategy that allows you to really offer the best level of service.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, I know for every hour I'm billing, I provided value, and the client sees it. And when they see it, they're going to pay it, because they recognize what is brought to the table and what they gain from it. And it's a mutual agreement that we're fair and equitable.
Definitely.
Patty G Show is proudly brought to you by Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelry. Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelry is a local business right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They create handcrafted jewelry for everyday use, that special occasion, whatever it may be. Gentlemen, they've got amazing jewelry both for male and female. Everyone is their audience. After years of experimenting with everything from ceramic jewelry, glass beads, and enamel, they've settled in on the ancient art of lost wax casting. Is their main form of creating their work. They cast everything in bronze, sterling silver, and 14 karat gold. Every step of the way is done here right in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Proud sponsors of the Patty G Show. Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelers. Get out there and tell them that Patty G sent you, and they're going to take great care of you on your next order.
Definitely.
So, John, before we get you out of here, we do have to ask you 4 questions we ask every guest. So the first one being, what is something you did as a kid you wish you could still do today?
Pick up basketball. I number one, I don't have the time. Number two, my body would probably not react as well. But just getting with your buds and playing pickup basketball. That was a lot of fun as a kid.
Yeah, basketball was never really my sport, but sports in general, being able to play with your friends in the backyard or at the neighborhood park is something that we kind of lose as we get older.
Yeah, and travel baseball too, dude. Like, traveling around and playing baseball with your friends, 4 games in a day and you're dog tired. But man, it was awesome.
Yeah. I was never a travel ball, but I see those kids and I'm like, that's got to be a lot of fun at that age.
Yeah, definitely.
So you've been in industry, you've been in public, and now you're an owner. What are 3 lessons you've learned along your way?
Man, I think number 1 is the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. I think number 2, you really have to be in tune with your ego, and understand, that the thoughts in your head are not you. And, when you get control of that, you can lead yourself better, and then you can lead your team better. And then the third, Bill DePaula, like I mentioned earlier, he said it best, that everything that you want is on the other side of fear. And, for me, that was starting the business, that was getting involved in real estate, that was going after a client who I knew was probably too big for us. And, it's just a matter of, believing in yourself, believing in your processes, and just going after it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is something you love about Baton Rouge?
Man, I think the opportunity, because like I would say even personally, it's been easier than I thought to grow the business. It's in part to the fact that, the people here will be a fan and tell others about, the firm and the vision and the product. But I think we are in an area where it's easy for high achievers to get what they want. In part, maybe because there's not a ton of us, and that's probably an issue in itself. But for me, I mean, I'm talking to folks who I would have never thought even would have known my name at this point in my career, and I find that Baton Rouge is a place that is big enough to where you could really make, a difference and make a good living and provide a high level of service, but it's small enough to where you don't necessarily have to buy a bunch of marketing ads to get the word out. And so it's this nice niche of giving the right amount of reward for risk.
Yeah, and if you're a high achiever and you want to do anything and everything you can to grow, there's so much opportunity here within our own city, within our own state. There's not feast or famine, it's feast or drown because there's so much work.
That's right. Yeah, man, it's been great to get in with the business owners of Baton Rouge, and there's a lot of smart people around here, and I think sometimes Baton Rouge isn't the most tech forward or the most cutting edge adapting new technologies, but I think there's a lot of people who work really hard, and there's a lot of people who will go to bat for you, and honestly, like even bank relationships, like there are so many awesome banks around here that will help you scale if you've got the right pieces of the puzzle together, and I just don't really feel like a larger market you would get that same support.
Yeah, you'd almost be kind of lost in the sea of folks that are there, and here it's quickly attainable to be somebody. That people, like you said, they now know your name and you've been in business for 18 months.
That's right.
That stuff happens. It's possible here in Baton Rouge. So for the final question, man, what can I do to help you?
Man, I think just get this podcast out. So often a lot of podcasts are built around the individual. I think we talked a lot about the business, which is more important to me. And, I think that you've had some amazing entrepreneurs come through here already. And, just being able to be on the same platform is really humbling, and it's exciting. And so, the more this podcast gets out, the more the shorts get edited, the more I could share it. That's going to be awesome. And what an awesome time capsule too.
Oh yeah.
Like we're going to look back on this, we got a lot more to talk about. So, in 5 years time, when this is, nationally syndicated, bigger than Rogan.
Oh yeah.
No, but it'll be cool to look back at this point in our careers. And this point in Baton Rouge as well. It's a pivotal time.
It is. It's an exciting time to see where things are going and to see how things are progressing. But that was like one of the main reasons to start. That was one of the reasons to start the show, was to encapsulate that moment in time for that business, that owner, that person in the city, to see where we were and hopefully, how far we've come and how far those companies have come. It's like, what we can do here is create and share a moment in time that will last and be around forever.
Definitely.
So, man, I appreciate your time and coming on the show today and sharing your stories.
Yeah.
It's been a blast. It's always fun to sit around with another fellow accountant and CPA that's able to have a similar mindset and mentality. It's nice. It's refreshing.
Definitely. Agreed, man. It was great. Thanks for having me.
So thank you so much, Sean, for coming on. And thank you, everybody else, for watching or listening to the show. Whatever platform you consume us on, look, having a relationship, knowing your ABCs, your attorneys, your bankers, and your CPAs is more important now than ever. And COVID was proof of that. So if you don't already have a good working relationship with your CPA, you're looking for a new CPA, there's a lot of us in town. Reach out to us. And like John said, not everybody's going to be a right fit. So find somebody that fits you for where you're at, what you're trying to do. It could be one of us. It could be neither of us. But find somebody that's going to fit you where you're at, fit your need, and really take you to where you want to go. So thank y'all so very much for listening. This has been the latest episode of the Patty G Show. We're out. Thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Lake Men's Health Center with Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group. Guys, I know it's tough to get out and go to the doctor. I know it's challenging to find time in our busy days, but I promise you, signing up to be a part of this group with Dr. Curtis Chastain and Dr. Tyler Boudreau, you won't regret it for several reasons, but most of those being the fact of the time it saves, where you're able to get in on the same day, get that appointment done, and spend that time you need to talk with them about what your health goals and concerns are, as well as ensuring that the financial investments you have, you will be able to live out and see those come to fruition. So if you're an investing guy, you know all about and planning for the future and investing in the future. There's no other more important thing to invest in than your health. Make sure you go check them out, Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group Men's Health Center, and tell them Patty G sent you. McLavy's Ltd, a proud sponsor of the Patty G Show, has been serving the Baton Rouge area proudly for 40-plus years. Gentlemen and ladies, if you're shopping for your man, there is no other place in the Baton Rouge area to get your clothing, whether it's game day needs, everyday needs, business attire, formal attire, whatever you want. Go over there, see Frank and Ashley. It's a father-daughter duo. They do incredible things in their store. They will outfit you from as simply a shirt. Thank you to Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge for making this show possible. Nick Pentis is a past guest. We love having him on. Listening to him talk about the culture they have over at Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge is really an incredible thing to hear. How they treat not only their employees, but every customer that walks through the door. You are more than just a number to them. They're going to give you that white glove concierge service every step of the way. They're going to make you feel like family and take what can be a stressful time in people's life, shopping for a car. They're going to make it so enjoyable and so pleasurable. You're going to want to go back there time and time again for every new vehicle. Thank you so very much for Mercedes-Benz of making this show possible.